Good late morning, everyone. I'm Tom Conlon, Chair of this Community Climate Action Advisory Committee of the Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authority. Welcome to our meeting. I'd like to first just go around and we have some new faces around the table, which is a pleasure. And so I'll ask you to introduce yourself, state your preferred pronouns, and your jurisdiction that you represent. And I'll start to my right.
Okay. Shirley Johnson, Rohnert Park, she, her.
Neil Hancock, Kitati.
Ryan Martin Dent, he, him, Katati as well.
Andy Schrader, he, him, Petaluma.
Tyler Sylvie, Sonoma County District 3.
Steve Keith, Rohnert Park.
Pete Gang, Petaluma.
I'm Stephanie Turk, she, her, from Healdsburg.
Senator Schweiding, Sebastopol.
Jake McKenzie, Vice Chair of this committee, from Rohnert Park.
And online, go ahead.
Christopher Peck, Windsor.
Nick Thayer, the he.
Good morning, Yuan Vivas from County Sonoma, Strategic Initiatives.
Chris White from Kittleson and Associates and here to present today.
Great, thank you. And Tom Conlon, representing District 3, Supervisorial District 3, he or they.
Tom, just very briefly, I wanted to, Nick is participating under AB 2449. And very briefly, I will make that official, if you don't mind. Nick is participating under the Just Cause. So I must ask you, so you'll participate as a member of the committee, though you are remote. So just asking if any other individuals 18 years or older are present with you in the room at this time?
Not in the room, no.
Okay, excellent. And we will ask you to keep your camera and audio on as per the AB 2449 requirements. And we will, any votes, we will do by roll call.
Can I do that as well? Can I attest to that there's no one here and that I can also participate in that way? This is, or is it too late?
Be a parliamentarian about it. Nick, let me know in advance under Just Cause. So I will just be doing AB 2449 for him. However, we have a small group. I'll leave it up to the chair, but I don't think that will affect anything.
Yeah, Chris, we certainly welcome your active input as always, as do we members of the public at the appropriate time. But AB 2449 requires us to have this pre-notice and Nick provided that this time. So without further ado, I'll open the floor to public comment. Members of the public are encouraged to speak to any item that's not on the current agenda.
There we go. Hi, Steve Pierce from Sebastopol, and I've come before this group a few times and talked about the coming requirements from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District for heat pump water heaters starting just over a year from now, 2027, and then in 2029, the requirement comes for heat pump space conditioning. So this is if your unit fails, you need to replace it with a heat pump. And the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has kind of gone over a lot of issues, talked with quite a few people about this, and now they're moving to the point where how are they going to work out the exemptions, because there's going to be quite a few of those. So at this point, they have a document that's available for comment on, and they're looking at exemptions for low-income homeowners. We're looking at, I think it's 120,000 water heaters every year are being replaced in the Bay Area. That's just an enormous number. I think it's about 10,000 or so here in Sonoma County. So you're looking at CARE, FARA, low-income exemptions. Those are homeowners. And then the next category is businesses with high hot water demand, restaurants, food services, laundries, healthcare, assisted living. And then emergency replacement loaners. They haven't really figured this one out, but it's an important category because so many people, you don't replace your water heater until a leak occurs. So it's an emergency. Yeah, but they have found that most of the water heaters that are being replaced through like the Check Clean California Heat Pump Water Heater Program, 75% are replaced in 1 day, 82% in 2 days. So that's substantial turnaround time for emergency water heaters, but they realize that they're going to need to have some kind of emergency loaner program. The concern is they don't want those loaners to then become permanent replacements. And how do you deal with that? So the next big category is hydronic systems. If you have a water heater that's heating your space, that doesn't work for heat pumps. Space constraints, that's a big one. How does it fit? So they're talking about having contractors come out and certify that, no, it won't work. You're constrained by space. Now, that's a bit problematic because apparently only 7% of people get a permit for a water heater replacement. So how is that going to work if you have to have a contractor come out and fill out paperwork to say there's not enough room? And then the other big one is electrical constraints. So anybody with knob and tube wiring, you're exempted. Electrical panel less than 100 amps, you're exempted. That's 60 amps for multifamily. And if your new 240 connection is more than 25 feet, you're exempted. And if you don't have enough space on your circuit breaker. So those are what they're working through, and it's out for draft comment now. I just wanted to let you know that this progress or this major impact, probably the biggest thing for the whole Bay Area in terms of building energy use, is the Bay Area Air Quality Management District requirements.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Useful information. I know we've been wanting to keep close attention to that matter. Let's see. Are there any other public comments? If not, I'll close that public hearing and move on to the administrative portion of our agenda. It notes here approval of the September 12th meeting notes. Do my committee members have any edits requested or recommended for these notes? Staff, anything that you noticed since it's been published? I do have a few things. I noticed, first of all, that the meeting notes refer to the prior committee of the whole meeting notes, which were not approved last time. So those, I don't want to lose those. Those should probably come back to us, I guess, at the next meeting in our next packet. And then I had one minor edit to something that I was quoted as saying on page 7. It says half of the sales tax collected, and I'd like the phrase for transportation to be included. That was my intent. I may have misspoken, but certainly don't want the meeting notes to refer that half of all sales tax collection in Sonoma County goes to the SMART train. That's not accurate at all. So with that minor edit and message, I would ask for a motion to approve do we need a motion on these? I think we do formally do that. So let's please
move approval of the September 12th meeting notes. So move.
And a second. Thank you. And with any further comment, I'll just, by a show of hands, any support?
Further comment would be that the meeting notes from July 11th be brought back at the next meeting of this committee for approval.
That's okay with you, David, to amend it with that? Yes. And so
I believe
any objection? Any abstentions? Note 2 abstentions, Tyler and Andy and David. Shirley.
I believe we do have to do a roll call vote just due to AB
Ah, very well.
2449.
Will do.
I apologize. Sorry for breaking in.
Trying to make us move us along, but roll call vote then, which I will, do you guys want to keep track on your end? Please call for it then.
Okay. Do you want me to do it by name or district? Okay. Neil Hancock,
Yes.
Ryan Martin Dent,
I will abstain.
Stephanie Turk. Approve. Andy Schrader,
Abstain.
Pete Gang,
Yes.
Shirley Johnson,
Abstain.
Steve Keith,
Yes.
Zeno I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your.
Abstain.
What do you do? Approve. David Leland,
Abstain.
Tom Conlon,
Aye.
Tyler Sylvie,
Abstain.
Jake McKenzie,
Aye.
Nick Thayer.
Abstain.
That's everybody.
Thank you. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to a discussion of the committee collaboration ad hoc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just very briefly wanted to bring an item to the CAAC's attention. This is kind of a offshoot of a discussion that was had at our currently Citizens Advisory Committee, soon to be Community Advisory Committee. And this is based on the two sides of the organization coming together, at least in a public facing manner, as you can see on the wall, as SCTCA. So basically the SCTCA Executive Committee expressed some interest in exploring collaboration opportunities between CAAC and CAC in a very general sense, just mainly because the goals of the transportation and the climate sides of our organization have become more and more aligned. And there's a lot of expertise on both committees to be shared. And so I am just introducing the idea for discussion and just gauging some interest in potential, go ahead. Potential collaboration with the CAC. And essentially there's a possibility that the board will create an ad hoc in February. Ad hoc of the board. However, we're also looking to see if anyone has any interest in being involved in that process, advising, giving feedback to that ad hoc as they explore options. So to be clear, this is very general. This is very just kind of starting to feel it out and looking for collaboration. The CAAC as it is will not change. The CAC as it is required by the Sonoma tax measure will not change. However, we're just looking for some opportunities to possibly come together and share some expertise in the new year. So I just like to, don't need an action on it, just opening it for discussion. And if anyone is interested in participating in the process, once we get there, if the board decides to do that, just gauging interest. So that's the item that I'm bringing today, just for a brief discussion.
Thank you, Ross. Any initial thoughts from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd be interested in participating if the effort is actually instituted. Seems like a good idea. Thank you.
Any general thoughts before specific recommendations to participate? Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not clear what that would look like.
I think this is, at this point, neither are we. We're truly looking for options. I think things that have been brought up and this is just conceptually, when there's a big item that is particularly climate related, that is going to go before both committees. If it's something that's going to take up, the bulk of the meeting, potentially a joint meeting, potentially a one-off, if there's going to be more in-depth discussion. But at this point, there's already some transportation items that are brought to the CAAC. So this would be more likely if there's big climate questions that come before the CAC. And this is just me saying that. We'll see what the board would decide. But basically, there's a lot of expertise in this room, particularly climate related, but there's also a lot of very specific, like the electric car organizations and things like that on the CAC that have some really great info as well. So it's really just as SCTCA becomes one thing, how can we draw on both, not make more work, ideally maybe to be more efficient in the end, because I know a lot of times we'll have an item that will go to every committee. Is there a chance that maybe we could do it in a collaborated way? So
I'm interested in hearing more, but once there's
I'll
more of
put
it
your name
there,
yeah, exactly. The their question is still.
Okay, I've got a queue here. We got Shirley, Tyler, and then Pete.
Okay, so I guess this is a reverse of what I was thinking at that death by committee. So this is kind of reversing death by committee. Is that what you're proposing?
I think that's the intention.
Reincarnation by committee.
Yeah, I think efficiency just was what was mentioned in by the executive committee.
And is this being driven by staff, or is this more of the board? It's the
Exec
board
committee.
request.
Yeah, this
Very
came
good.
up with them.
Tyler.
So legally, can these two combine for a meeting, or is that to be determined later? Would there have to be some changes to bylaws?
That would have to be figured out. However, we got very in depth into the CAC bylaws. And really, we're not going to change that as is. I think we do have some leeway to do joint meetings. It's basically, is it Brown Act compliant? Is it agendized? Does the timing work out?
And it's just an advisory vote potentially anyways, right? So.
Exactly. So theoretically, yes, it could be legal.
Gotcha. Apart from one-offs, if you were looking for more, I guess, regular collaboration, what about, the idea of are they set up the same as we are? They run their own meetings?
They do. They have a chair and a vice chair. Yeah.
If one of the vice chair could attend the other meeting on a quarterly basis, and we sort of switch, and that could be an agenda item, where we sort of share what's going on in our group, and
okay,
vice versa. It's an idea, just to make more work for those folks.
He's on Tom's on both committees.
And Pete.
I'll just say from my personal viewpoint, I've chosen to focus most of my climate related energies and tensions on the transportation realm, because it's such a huge part of our activity-based greenhouse gas emissions. So for me, my interests may be more closely aligned with the CAC. So I'm interested in exploring what collaborations might look like. I know it's all shrouded in dense fog at this point.
It is indeed. Thank you.
Okay, any comment online? I see Nick's hand is raised.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm new to the CAAC and the SCTCA, so there's definitely a lot of history here I don't know, but it seems like what you're saying, Ross, is that the CAC, I think, came from the SCTA and we came from the RCPA.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like I kind of see two different questions. One, there's an opportunity for increased collaboration between the advisory committees to the SCTCA, and separately trying to figure out how to bring, I guess, more transportation into our existing climate work. Is that right?
Not, I don't know that we're going to increase the amount of transportation work coming into this side. It's really, yeah, just exploring options. And I will say there are some transportation items that are, such as like the SCTCA funding program, just because climate is a big part of the scoring process on those projects, that there will already be some transportation items that come before this committee.
Okay.
That answered your question.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess, yeah, it would make sense, but I would like to see more details on the format and intent, but I like the idea.
All right. I see Neil, I think you have a comment.
Yes, I'd be interested. I'm very active in low speed transportation options and advocating for those. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, I will just add, it makes some sense to me that the board would want to be sure that there is deliberative advisory discussion to avoid the potential for one committee to make a recommendation on a big public policy initiative and the other committee to perhaps go in the opposite direction or take no position. So it kind of makes some sense to me that there should be some discussion to avoid that happening for lack of information. So in that sense, I can support the idea. I am worried about extra work and both for staff as well as for the volunteers. And then the other thing that occurs to me is that this is just internal to SCTCA, but we also have the CARD division under the county administrator's office, and they are similarly working on climate-related policy and advisory, well, in a capacity that sometimes the same group of decision makers, the Board of Supervisors, would be overseeing. So if we were to form an ad hoc, my recommendation might be to include participation from someone from that office as well, just to be sure that everybody's on the same page in the advisory to do deliberative process. And what would be the next steps from staff? Will it go to CAC? Has it already gone to CAC for discussion? I missed the last meeting.
We have discussed it at CAC. I think I got a little wide with the scope in that discussion. And now we're kind of bringing this, I will bring this feedback back to management and eventually the board. And theoretically, this will be an item in February, deciding whether they want to create an ad hoc of the board to explore this. But it's all based on their initial recommendation.
Very well. Thank you. I hope you have enough, what you need from us.
I think so. And
Great.
thank you all volunteers. Appreciate it.
All right, then. So to the protein of our agenda, the report out from CAAC members by jurisdiction. Who wants, I guess we'll start to my left this time, Jake. Why don't you give us an output? Road department.
I don't have anything major to report from my area, but just a reminder that our governor is in Brazil at this time at the Conference of Partners 30, COP 30, and there's no representative from our federal government present at these meetings. So I'm pleased that California is well represented. I had the pleasure of going to COP 14 and COP 15 back in the day. And so it's just to be commended that our governor is there with other key members and some people from Santa Rosa as well. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything myself, but I wonder if Steve has anything to add to my nothing. Steve is the chair of the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee, the City of Sebastopol's committee. Go ahead.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll be quick this time. The two things. One was the city had passed the climate, it's the Polluters Pay Climate Fund. It's something that the Climate Center had spearheaded, and they're encouraging all cities and the county to pass resolutions to support this state legislation that's basically looking at, I think it's the top 8 oil companies in the world would be assessed what their damages are up to through, I think, 2023. And then from those damages, you'd end up with a long court case, no doubt. And this is quite a process to end up getting lots of money potentially down the road. So I think Katati passed that initiative the week before Sebastopol. Thank you. I think that helped us pass ours. So I encourage each city to examine that resolution and see if it can be passed in your city too. And the next thing is, this is kind of a small thing, but for all you bicycle commuters that are out there, we are in the next council meeting, the city will be sending a letter to Caltrans to request the bicycle signaling. So many of the bicycle signals are either non-existent or embedded in the road. So only metal bicycles will set them off. So these are cameras that many cities in the county have adopted. We have highways that go through our city, so we're really dependent on Caltrans doing this. So we're requesting that. They cost around $50,000 each, and it can really help with bicycle safety and overall circulation. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephanie, go ahead.
Thanks. So from Healdsburg, we've had a number of staff turnover recently with our city. So the climate advocates in Healdsburg are starting to work with and get to know the new staff members and try to form those relationships again with our utility, particularly with our utility staff. One small thing that's come up is that the city utility has received a credit for, it's like something like $3.5 million of renewable energy credit. And the climate activists are trying to encourage the city to build an additional solar array, which we have one of in above our wastewater treatment plant, and it's one of our biggest sources of energy. And so we are encouraging to build a solar array and a battery system. The other thing they're thinking of doing is undergrounding utilities, but as you know, $3.5 million does not take you very far if you're undergrounding. So it's sort of like, is that really going to make a big difference? So that's one thing we're working on, just a project there. We are also looking forward to our next city council elections, trying to get some more climate advocates on board. And then in my committee project of the idle-free school zones, just a nice small update that this school year, we finally have every single public and private school in our city with an idle-free zone sign all around their pickup line, and working with various ways to educate parents and caregivers to turn off engines around school zones. And then hopefully that will spread into other areas of the city. I just passed an idler today and had a conversation. So it just never really ends, but the signs help. So that was a positive. That's all for me.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 3 things. One is I have been on an ad hoc subcommittee of our Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee tasked with making recommendations to the city about revisions and rewriting of our street and trail design standards. Following the passage, the city council approval of our active transportation plan. And what we are realizing is that our street design standards are the ones currently in place only deal with traffic, the movement of traffic. And they need to be completely reimagined and rewritten to also take into account vegetation, trees, stormwater maintenance, places for people. So it's a big effort, monumental effort that we're starting to approach. Another one is another item that I wanted to mention is over the last several years, our local group, Climate Action Petaluma, has organized quarterly climate action roundtables where we have gathered together members of the community and city staff to look at different aspects of our ongoing community efforts. And at our last gathering, our climate action manager, Deb Fox, has taken that format that we created and has taken over the ongoing organization of meetings. So it's big effort, but it's an effort to make connections between active, engaged community members and the city's efforts in several different areas. There's an electrification working group, a healthy soils working group, urban greening and habitat gardening working group, and a communications working group. So anyway, this is just a short mention of something that has big potential. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is a member of our Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee made a suggestion at one of the meetings about the city lowering the speed limit on certain streets. And she was told that, nice idea, but the city doesn't have the authority to do that. And her response was, well, that's just a rule and people make rules, so we can change that. So she came across a bill that was signed by the governor in the state of Washington in May of this year, called the Shared Streets Bill. And it allows it gives local jurisdictions the authority to designate certain streets as shared streets, two defining characteristics. One is a maximum speed limit of 10 miles an hour. And the other one is that pedestrians and cyclists and others have priority over cars and trucks. And so we're spearheading an effort to try to get a similar legislation passed at the state level. And I've never been involved in state level legislation. We got to talk about this, Andy. But it's something that I think the city of Petaluma is willing to get behind, and it would be great if we could just have greater participation among the county, because the potential is huge. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I have to report, I guess, I was just trying to remember last meeting where it was as far as the Resynergy, the plant recycling essentially of plastics through particular means. They not only pulled out of Rohnert Park, they pulled out of the state. And I don't have much further comment on that other than perhaps not so much the technology, but the administrator of it was the issue. So I, for one, it would be excited about looking for other ways to recycle a lot of the plastics that end up in the landfill. But so that's all I have to report for Rohnert Park.
And I'll just note that Jay could recommend we agendize that this time, but I think you'd agree it's now a moot point.
Yeah.
Very well. Around the table, move on to June. Nick, do you have any comments on your jurisdiction? What is that, District 5?
Yeah, Sonoma County District 5, West County. Nothing major. There are some small improvements being made in Guerneville on walkability. in the town of Guerneville. It's kind of two steps forward, one step back. The town is getting more attractive in some ways to walkers and more accessible for anybody using wheelchairs or anything. On the other hand, it's kind of a piecemeal process with the left hand not really talking to the right hand in terms of Caltrans managing the 116 corridor through the middle of Guerneville, and the county and local groups managing the rest. So it's bits of progress here and there. We are getting an updated plaza that I think will increase the attractiveness of walking. But let's see, and then there's a new park supposedly coming to Guerneville as well, but there's a lot of concerns there also about how far the county is willing to go or not go in terms of restoring critical wildlife habitat and stream and wetland habitat, as opposed to pushing ahead with less than desirable and less than needed projects because the project is already in motion. Basically, there's a wetland that has already been partially paved, and so they don't want to restore it, and instead they're going to pave it more with parking lots. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, thank you.
I will just add that the committee does have a couple openings, and they have allowed folks outside the city to serve on that in the past. And there's 2 openings right now. I think until December 11th is the application deadline. So if you know folks interested, they've had some turnover there and some new people appointed, but they do still have a couple opportunities open there.
Thank you. And Tyler, for District 3 or anything else?
Nothing for me.
How about you, Andy?
You think you're going to have a minute or two to gather your thoughts? A couple of things. So the state bill I've been working on for about a year and a half, we got approved and signed by the governor a couple of weeks ago, SB 279, which will ease permitting for community composters and one-time biomass removals for like vineyards and orchards, basically to make it easier to compost. So if you know anybody who is impacted by that, please let them know. We're doing with the People, Food and Land Foundation, we are doing a virtual roadshow to educate municipalities across the state about implementing SB 1425, which is a state bill that requires municipalities to update their open space element of their general plan. And we're also talking about how food waste can be a resource and an economic driver in implementing 1425. So if you have any city planners or county planners that want to hear that, we'll be happy to include them. The coordinated climate communications proposal that we brought to this board, I think in January, is being piloted by Petaluma, and the U.S. Green Building Council is willing to act as a fiscal sponsor if we raise funds to coordinate messaging across Sonoma, Marin, and Napa counties. So that's an opportunity coming. And also in Petaluma, we're working on a healthy soils master plan and a biodiversity effort that we would like to spread to the rest of the county too. So look for that coming soon.
Great, thank you. Ryan.
Yeah, the Roanoke Park Katati Regional Library is doing a screening of the episode 2 of Climate California, the Song of Strangers, on December 17th.
Song of Strangers is a film?
It's Climate California is the series put on by PBS, and this episode is called The Songs of Strangers.
Thank you. Go ahead, Neil.
Nothing much other than that was already mentioned that Katati has passed the resolution on the polluters pay. I've forgotten what the full name is, but that was thanks to the support from the climate, the climate adaptation program. Anyway, it was Katati passed that. Thank you.
Great, Shirley.
Okay, on a vaping note, I have Emily Gonzalez presenting to the Unified School District, Katati Roanoke Park, about how much waste is created by vaping. And she'd like to have, I think it's a few jurisdictions sign in, like Santa Rosa did with a tobacco-free ordinance of some sort. So I didn't get a chance to look at the whole ordinance, but her stats on how much waste the vapes are creating is pretty astounding.
Vaping?
Vaping, correct. And she's with Sonoma County Human Resources or Health.
Health
Yeah.
Department.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
David.
Updates from City of Sonoma. The hazard mitigation plan is being updated, so that has a climate tie-in. The city is looking at an analysis of their fleet, and this is something that we had proposed that they take a look at a number of years ago now. So it's great to see some action on that, and hoping that that will lead to electrification of some or all of their fleet. Number of active transportation things that are happening, Bike Boulevard on 3rd Street West, a rehab of West Spain Street, which is a calmer alternative to Highway 12, running east-west from the plaza out to where Highway 12 turns to the north. And a traffic hazard reporting form, which allows citizens a better way to identify I suppose any traffic problem, but I'm sure that that includes conflicts between automobile traffic and bicycles and pedestrians. So a lot of stuff going on, and also a city general plan update, which looks to me like an opportunity to embed climate issues into a plan that lives for 20 years or so. In the case of Sonoma, it was 2006 when the last update happened. So, and finally, I think this acts as an overarching thing, and Tom may have more insight in this, but a climate smart Sonoma outreach program that may communicate on all of these and a number of other things as well in Sonoma. So things are happening in Sonoma finally after it feels like we were struggling for quite a while. So it's good to see.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, David. I'll just append to that a few things. This traffic hazard reporting form process, there is a traffic safety committee that's met for years in Sonoma, but they've taken the form and they put it online and made it prominent on the website. And suddenly there's lots of people using it. And there's I think, a heightened level of interest in traffic safety in the community. Petitions going around, people collecting signatures, and that's going to be how the committee decides what to move forward on. To Pete's comments earlier about traffic safety, I'll just point out that SCTCA's Margot Kanyas has been working, put on a workshop with all the public works people around the county. We're invited, I believe, to talk about speed limit reduction. And there was a lot of great back and forth, best practices sharing, experience sharing, barriers discussions about legal constraints of, well, if you do that too much, you'll end up having an impact on legal counsel's workload or the way cases may play out. So it's quite complex, but the conversations are happening around the county, and I feel like there's post-active transportation plan. there is a bit of a surge in attention being paid to Vision Zero, more than just a aspirational statement. Of course, the flip side is that I think traffic casualties and incidents are up because we have a lot more people driving around, a lot of speeds, and cars are getting bigger too. So that there's a need for this more than there has been in the past. I have on here just general updates. Plan Bay Area 2050 plus, the DEIR is out for comments due 12/18. That's the comprehensive Bay Area wide transportation plan. David mentioned the local hazard mitigation plan. That's a multi-jurisdiction plan. So most of your jurisdictions probably have updates happening. Had a very interesting session in Sonoma. I did a retrospective comparison of the 2021 plan, and a number of things have been dropped or de-emphasized in the new plan. For example, landslides are no longer considered a top tier concern. I asked the question, is that because all the properties that were at risk have already slid down the hill? Because we know that happened in the last couple of years, but I haven't gotten an answer yet back on that. At the last meeting, and maybe we'll talk about this, I just wanted to note that BC had said there won't likely be any focus on reach codes in this current code update cycle based on the changes in state law. I noted that Bayren is hosting a webinar. I think it's next week. I didn't write down the time and place, but if you go to the Bayren website, you'll see there's an explanation for why, I think is probably what that meeting is going to be. And I imagine staff is going to be sending someone to participate in that workshop. I'll note that our governor, you mentioned the governor has a new CARB appointee, and that the news article I saw was that the CARB appointee is actually starting to scale back. At least this was the way it was reported. The electric vehicle sales 2035 mandate that was such a prominent piece of governor's climate initiative appears that that may no longer be something that the administration is going to stand up and support. And then I don't think it's been circulated to this committee, but I think I shared it with staff. I did a very quick comparison of Sonoma County's greenhouse gas inventory and that which was recently completed in Napa County. Categories are a little bit different, but the bottom line takeaway is that we're a more urbanized county than Napa, and we have higher per capita, no, I'm sorry, Napa has higher per capita greenhouse gas emissions. They're much smaller than we are. They're about a third of the size of Sonoma County, but we have a much bigger agricultural footprint. We have dairies. We have a lot of chickens and ducks in this community, and they have a footprint that's not been going down at all. So those are some takeaways of that very high level comparison of the two greenhouse gas plants. And then I noticed online, well, it looks like Steve's not there anymore. Steve Bertelbaugh had joined us briefly. I haven't seen it published yet, but a draft is circulating of a letter that will be requesting that Caltrans prioritize infrastructure spending to enable SMART to achieve 30-minute headways. Right now, apparently there's some infrastructure constraints with the existing train tracks that you cannot run trains fast enough to meet the 30-minute headway reduction goal that is recommended by the Mascots community study. So they're essentially asking SMART to focus on this problem because this is a key part of our transit strategy for the county, for the two-county area, and prioritize spending on this infrastructure improvement, perhaps even ahead of extension to Cloverdale and Healdsburg, Cloverdale, or east-west. And so it's just an issue I wanted folks to be aware of. I haven't seen a final version of the letter come out yet, but it's a conversation that's begun. And I encourage folks to tune in and pay attention to that. It's an important one for our county.
Tom, could you explain what 30-minute headway is?
Sorry, that's a little bit of transit speak. A 30-minute, a headway is how much time between two buses, between two transit vehicles. So it's the amount of time you spend standing at the bus stop waiting for the next bus, the next subway train. And right now, one of the big constraints to using transit is that people have to wait too long, can't get anywhere. And so reduced headways really can spur transit ridership. And to date, we've been using free fare, which works pretty well, but it only goes so far and we need to go a little farther. While we're talking about transit, I'll add just a quick sidebar. I'm in chat conversation right now with a person on Craigslist who wants to sell me free bus tickets, Sonoma County Transit and Smart bus tickets. Yeah, they're apparently giving these away to folks who need them, and there's an aftermarket. So I've been sharing this information with transit agency. They haven't decided yet what they're going to do, to my knowledge. All right.
Mr. Chair, I presume on SMART, the question is the lack of double tracking.
Exactly. The way that I've heard it played out is that the system was designed initially, but then we added some extra stations, and that those extra stations keep the trains from being able to hit the speeds necessary to hit that 30-minute. And therefore, we're going to need more double tracking in a couple of key congestion zones. That's the infrastructure need that was apparently overlooked when the new stations were added. So complex stuff. That's what we deal with at the Transportation Committee.
Tom, I'm sorry, did you say that there's a greenhouse gas inventory publicly available for Sonoma County?
Yes, on the SCTCA website, there's a dashboard and there's the history of all the inventories that the RCPA has been doing since, I think, 2016, which look back at a 1990 baseline. You can look at them there. There's an addition, Napa County has recently issued a climate action plan that includes a good deal of greenhouse gas emissions data as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And did we want to check on public comment briefly? Just
Any further public check-ins from communities? If not, I'll ask Tanya to go ahead and give us an update on staff affairs.
So this is item number 5, the Equitable EV Charging Plan. And I'd actually like to introduce Chris White, who is with Kittleson, and they are the consultants working with SCTCA, Latino service providers, and the County of Sonoma to develop this plan. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks so much for having me today, you all. This will be a really brief update on this that we're working on behalf of the County of Sonoma, SCTCA, and Latino service providers about where we might plan for and site future charging stations to fill gaps within the county. And I do want to tell you before I launch into what we're doing and then make my ask of you, every place is a good place for a charging station. There are no bad places. But within every project that comes along, there are parameters that we're looking at for this one. And so I'm going to explain that just a little bit and show you where we are in the project and how we've what my request of you is. So the first thing is really looking at what the goals of this project are. And we've got a pretty big variety here in the types of users that we want to think about charging stations for, some purposes that we want to do, and really looking at ways that we enable the transition from government-owned, built, and operated to becoming more of something that private industry is doing and as an economic development opportunity for local businesses to be involved as well. This particular project does not have funding. We don't have money to put charging stations in the ground, but there's a big component in saying the ones that we're identifying that are the nearest term, what do we do specifically to have them implemented? And sometimes that is finding funding. Sometimes it is making a business case to a partner, but it's also looking at things like design codes, zoning restrictions, things that cities and counties can do to enable a third-party developer to come in. So I use the example a lot that a city does not build a hospital, but what a city does is build the infrastructure, sewers, sidewalk, roads, that makes it a great place for a hospital to come. So we take that same approach. As we've gotten started, we are not starting from scratch. You all and Sonoma County, SCTCA have done remarkable work in looking at these things over time. And so we pull all of that in. But we also know that some of these plans, you know, technology changes. Some of the things that we started with a few years ago, we didn't know that we were going to be able to do. For instance, I'm at a conference today, megawatt charging for trucks. That wasn't on the calendar 5 years ago. So we have to take what has been done before and look at the crystal ball of what's coming and make a plan that incorporates all of that. So this is a little bit of the way that we approach the project. We start with looking at where things are today, what data, what do roads look like? Where are places that people are having crashes? What are your plans for rezoning territories or building bike lanes or some of the things that you've just talked about? We use that along with a lot of GIS data to narrow it down to the sites that best fit the goals of this project. And for this, it was not on top of an existing charging station, filling gaps, look at places where we're having different types of people travel, commuters, visitors, residents, the ways that they move. And then we look for what we consider the optimal locations. That's where we are today. And for us, some of our optimal locations are those that fill those user needs, but are also don't need millions of dollars or years worth of investment to get them ready. The next step then is to take these optional sites and actually go out with an electrician who installs charging stations and make a plan for them. So there's where we are on our project. Let me tell you just a little bit about what we've done to get to this and how we've gotten to the locations I'm going to show you in a bit. I mentioned we started by looking at where are the gaps in the system. This is the publicly available charging stations today in Sonoma County. So again, not building them on top of each other, but plugging a hole. Then we needed to look for places that don't need extensive electricity upgrades. So this is the electrical capacity map. The paler blue, the less electricity there is. And so that is a big challenge too, because you can see that there are some areas that literally have no electricity. And there are others that have very little electrical capacity. Now, PG&E will bring electrical capacity. It is their job to do it. And if you said, I'm going to build a DC fast charging station right here in the middle of the Austin Creek State Recreation Area, they will make a plan to bring the power there. In some of the instances I've worked with PG&E, they could bring the power in 6 months. In one of my projects, infamously, they told me it would be 50 years, 50 years. We want to avoid the 50 years. We want to avoid the 5 years. We want to look at the ones where we can get them going quickly. And then we also have really talked to people. And this is where Latino service providers and Tanya and our stakeholder group have come in really handily in looking at how people travel. So we've looked at the way that people move, work, where do they go? Where do they stop? How often do they go there? And we got that first bit of information from our focus groups. And the second bit of information is really looking at the way in which people are commuting to and from the county. And this really includes the folks that are living in the county and commute outside, and those that live outside the county and come into work. And where are those places at which they stop for periods of time? And then we look at things that are what we call near neighborhood, in neighborhoods with high percentage of renters. And I'm sure you've heard that over time, we've really looked at how we provide charging to multifamily properties. We just want to extend that a little bit to think of all rental properties, all places at which people are, I heard a term one time, garage orphans, where they could not put it in their own garage. So here's where we are today. We have these sites. We have defined them. We have marked them on this public input map. And if this works correctly, when I click this, you're going to see this map. Okay, maybe it's going to take too long, but luckily I actually have the map up. Now I'm stuck in a loop. In the map, what you'll see is there are little stars, and those stars are proposed locations, and it shows you where they are in relationship to existing charging stations. So we are asking for comments on those proposed locations. Those big bubbles that look like the map pins, those are comments that other people have made. And you can also see what other people have said. You can also nominate another location. In fact, I've seen a lot of nominations on here. When I looked at the map earlier today, I'm gonna, for those of you that are online, I'm gonna drop it into the chat. For those of you that are in the room, please snap the QR code and you'll be able to take a look at it. You can see that there's been a lot of interaction on the map already with people giving us comments. This is a great place. Don't do it here. This piece of property already has lots of traffic congestion. Have you thought about here? We've also given you an opportunity to nominate a specific business. We are very cautious about not naming a business that we haven't spoken to yet. So you'll see some things are at intersections or in this general area. And we would love to hear from business hand raisers that say, yes, count me in. Help me figure out how to get charging stations installed for my residents, my customers, my visitors, my employees, my tenants. We would love to work with them. So that's an option as well. So my request for you all is, and I'm sorry my click the link didn't work the way it was supposed to. My request for you all, oh, there she goes. This is our map, and you can see more dots on here than questions. There's the layers right here. So if the number of existing chargers gets to be too complicated, you can turn that off.
Hi, Chris. We're still looking at the PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm going to stop sharing and try sharing again. You guys, I'm a Zoom not user, so I apologize for that. We are Teams people. So now we see the map. So you can click on any one of the little dots, the stars, and leave a message. Tell us what you'd like. I just turned the existing EV chargers off. So I'm going to turn that layer back on. That's over here in this layers button. You can zoom in and out. You can change the map so that it doesn't look like terrain. It looks like a satellite or even a street view to see the type of map that you're looking at. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in there. You'll see that we have people nominating outside of the county, and that always happens, and that's okay. We'd like to see where you're going with your car as well. So our request to you is to share this. This map will be live through probably the middle of February, and we're just starting our outreach to get as many people as possible to think about these sites. You know, we are looking for things like, did you think about this? Specific comments are really helpful. So, and thinking about what you yourself would do or need instead of thinking about amorphous people who aren't you, like other people who aren't me would want to do it here. So think about yourself and how it would enable you to go to work or home or school or play. And I do want to note, you'll see some big empty areas, and that is just because there's no electricity there, or there's not a road there, or there is another reason. Quite a bit of Sonoma County and their surrounding region is undevelopable. It's protected land. It's protected on purpose, and we want to keep protected lands protected. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and be available to answer any questions that you might have or anything Yolan, who is our project manager, wants to add.
Thank you, Chris. Shirley?
So while I was driving EVs for many years, I would have some charging stations in dark corners and being, did you get any feedback about that? Because it was pretty scary, because sometimes you have to charge late at night when you're traveling.
We have not got feedback about that, but when we get into the implementation stage, that is one of the number one things that we look for in the site. So when we go out and start walking around parking lots, we specifically look for a line of sight. We look for a place that people feel physically safe. If people don't feel safe doing something, nothing else matters. And that is our number one priority when we look at the sites. For the sites for which we will do designs of how to install it, we will include those things as well. We also look for vandalism potential, which has become huge in some cities. We look for opportunities where, for instance, if it's a blind corner and you have to be really careful pulling out of the parking lot. I have one where I charge regularly that is a blind turn and you can't see oncoming traffic. Not a great idea. So we look at all of those things.
Thank you. I see Chris has his hand up online.
Yeah, this is Christopher. Chris, thank you for this. I was just curious about I'm looking at it online, the map, and I noticed you had some purple comments and then there's blue comments and orange comments, and I don't see a legend that describes what the colors mean.
When you choose a comment, I believe the blue ones are where somebody has made a positive comment. The yellow ones are where they've expressed it, or orange is where they've expressed a concern, and purple is where they've nominated a business. When you leave a comment, there are 4 categories to choose from. You don't have to choose one, but it makes it easier to pop up. But that's a good point. We can add a legend. The legends were starting to get a little out of hand, but we can add a legend for that as well.
Great. Thank you. Andy, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation, Chris. I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about a possible legislative solution or something to commercial chargers being broken. As an EV owner, I find that you find an open charger, you're excited, you drive to it on the charger map, and then it's broken, and it's really frustrating. It'd be great if legislatively we could say to the commercial charger owners, this needs to be fixed within 2 weeks or a week or 3 days or something. Has there been any discussion about that?
Well, interesting timing on that. That is not part of this project. However, I am sitting in a employee cafeteria in Salt Lake City, where we have just finished 2 days of meeting with all of the Western states that are deploying NEVI. And half day of discussion was about how do we set reliability across all of the states? How do you track it? What punishment is there for not reliability? The fact that sometimes the reliability is not detectable. A station being offline is not detectable by software. So big conversation about it. I don't have answers for you today, but it will not be a thing that we solve at a local level. It will be a thing that we solve with the charging station vendors, and it will be done in a larger scale.
Thank you.
Agree with you.
David, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for this. How will the results of this be integrated with private efforts to add charging stations? Because there must be, I'm sure that there's a lot of that going on, and it may overlap with some of these locations. And are you privy to that kind of information? Would this become available to them, to charging companies, adding chargers? How does that work?
As we come to the bottom of the funnel, when we come with those ones that seem to check all of the boxes and are easy to implement and easy to do, we'll actually engage some partners. We have partners already, one of whom I talked to here today at this conference today about an idea. So we will have action plans for implementation. Sometimes though, that private partner, if you bring somebody from out of town, you are denying an opportunity to a local business. So we will look at that opportunity as well. Is there a business case for this private property owner to install and own the charging stations, or does the better opportunity to bring someone from out of town in to be the owner and operator of those? And then we look at what type of help would they need from the city or county. It's really important that we are not taking away from efforts to get people walking, biking, taking transit by putting in guilt-free travel in the same place. But we do want them to maybe think about how they can park a car at the smart train station to get on the train and go somewhere else and then come back. And how do we enable that? So the question is, yes, we will have that. I don't have that today.
So thank you, Chris. So I'd like to ask, just to confirm, this funding that you're working under is from SCTCA, or is there a different source of the funds?
And let me take that one over to you so you can talk about how this study was funded.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So this is actually a Caltrans, a Department of Transportation grants. So it's not federally funded at all. It's strictly state funds.
Very well. And have you come up with any formal criteria? You've given us a lot of different things to, potential features of each site that you might want to score, but do you have any formal criteria or weighting methodology?
To come down to the stars that are on the map, we worked with representatives from each of your cities and the county and some other folks to come up with criteria. And so that was quite a long process to say we want it to be X distance from existing chargers. It needs to have available electrical capacity. We want to look at places that are higher density, potentially lower income. So we came up with all of those and used that through our first round. We looked at almost 1,000, I can't remember the number of parcels you had. We looked at every parcel in the county. Used this as geospatial analysis, came down to 57, played with those a little bit, added some, took some away based upon stakeholder input, and then did our last round of really looking at utility capacity and some other constraints that we had on it, like a zoning constraint. One of the properties that I loved and I thought was the best one ever is being rezoned and it's not going to be available for charging. So we had to take some of those out too. We had stakeholders put a few back in. So we've ended up with 32 stars on the map.
Great, thank you. All right, one last question, Neil?
Yes, thank you for the big picture. I did have a look at the Cotati version and thought there were some good places in there. I didn't know that you were also looking for out of the area, because that wasn't obvious. And I'll go back and have a look at it. One of the big big problems I've found is that interoperability, and maybe this is crossing boundaries with other part of it, but I'll go somewhere in San Rafael and just round the theater or around there's a play that we go to, and there's 10 chargers, but none of them will ever interoperate or allow me to actually connect with them. So do you do anything with looking at where chargers are, but how the interoperability works?
Thank you for asking that. And so the first part of your question, this project is only looking at Sonoma County. So if somebody puts it down on the map in Mendocino County, it is not going to make its way into our report. Nice to know, but we're not going to use that. The second one is interoperability. It's a really good point. When we looked at the existing charging stations, we did not count the Tesla only stations, the ones that are not open to everybody's car, in the map. They just kind of disappeared from the map. So we did put them back on the user map because we didn't want people to go, oh, well, you missed this Tesla supercharger network at the Safeway. We want to make sure that we captured that, but that was not part of our geo analysis.
But there are other than just Tesla as well, which I've been surprised at. I think there were some BP ones in San Rafael.
The ones that we used in geospatial analysis are only those that are meeting the current standards. They are not they're not the ones that you're talking about that were built for one car and one car only. So we only evaluated based upon the universally available standard chargers.
Thank you.
Very well. Do you feel like?
And we also did not count anything behind a fence or only available if you called somebody on the phone 24 hours advance and he'd unlock his driveway so you could pull in. We didn't count those.
Very well. Thank you, Chris. I think we'll keep the pace along, moving along. And Tanya, thank you. And next we have on our agenda ClearPath 2.0 software, and BC Caps is going to update us on that.
Good afternoon, committee. Good afternoon, Chair Conlon and members of the committee. Let's see, my name is BC Caps, Climate Programs Manager. I'm going to give a presentation, and there's a PowerPoint in the presentations folder, both in PowerPoint or PDF format. Sorry, I didn't give you the warning. That's it. That is it. Okay. If I take the clicker, so let's see. I'm not able to see the slides directly, so if I get out of sync, please somebody let me know that I'm talking on the wrong talking point.
Give us one second here.
Very good suggestion. Thank you. Swap there really fast. Let's see, and I know that we are running a little bit long, so I will attempt to move through these slides very quickly, or rather quickly, but so again, my name is BC Caps, Climate Programs Manager here, and I wanted to give provide an update on our work that we're doing on evaluating potentially new greenhouse gas inventory software. The inventory that SCTCA conducts was mentioned earlier today. I believe it came up with a comment from Nick, and RCPA or SCTCA has accomplished that, has done that inventory several times over the past years, and we are kind of evaluating kind of the next steps on that. So just in general, kind of to give, I wanted to start with some background information about existing efforts and then kind of lead towards where we're aiming. So first off, our existing greenhouse gas inventory, it's an activity-based inventory that is, the calculations are conducted using some custom-built Excel workbooks that were built for us by the original consultant team as part of the Climate Action 2020 effort. And then those workbooks have been amended and enhanced over the years. The current process follows the US Community Protocol published by ICLEI, and there are 5 different categories of greenhouse gas emissions, and then the additional category of forest, land, and trees, which is available, where we are using as a placeholder to think about issues around sequestration. Our current inventory is updated about every 2 to 3 years. And the current workbooks, kind of pointing out some of the sore spots or kind of the weak spots, the current workbooks really don't have any integrated forecast functions or emission reduction planning built into them. They are really kind of designed, they do it to snapshot of our inventory. And then those results are displayed as part of our online dashboard that I've been working with our data analyst here on staff to work to build the last couple of years. Additionally, another existing efforts I wanted to call out was in 2021, our board adopted the climate mobilization strategy. This is a countywide action plan that really looks at a high level across 13 different strategies, of which SCTCA staff is focused on. And it's the document that set our goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2030 that we're currently working against. This document is a fantastic document, but wanted to point out it was not designed to be comprehensive, but specifically designed to focus on priority actions to be taken by staff and local jurisdiction partners. So that's a current document that has been approximately 5 years old and that we are potentially looking to update in the next year. Then additionally, I wanted to call out that all of our local jurisdictions, almost all of them, the majority of them, have developed documents generally known as local climate action plans. The cover here is a cover from the City of Petaluma's plan, their blueprint for climate action. So these documents are kind of adopted at the city or the town council level. They identify areas for staff work that is done by local jurisdiction staff. Just like many of our internal planning documents, these documents have large ambitions but limited resources for staff to work on and implement. There is also a major effort that is needed once the document is adopted. There's a major effort that is needed to track the implementation status, the status of the on-the-ground impacts, and any GHG emissions reductions. So what we have done here internally, working with Anna Oliva here on our staff, is she has put together, basically extracted all of the actions out of all of the PDF documents and the original documents. We've cataloged those all as part of what we call the Climate Action Tracker. It's in a kind of an extensive Excel-based workbook that we're using kind of internally that we can look up kind of for actions across jurisdictions. Show me all the actions across multiple jurisdictions having to do with electric vehicles. And it will kind of show us all of the kind of planned implementation steps that different jurisdictions have in their adopted documents. So then taking the next step and starting to think about moving forward, we have recently well, let me introduce first this new software that's become available. There's software available that was developed internationally and is available in the US. Internationally, it's known as Climate View. In the US, it's being marketed as ClearPath 2.0, originally developed in Sweden, and then it's licensed for use here in the United States via ICLEI, via an annual membership. This software includes not just an emissions-based inventory like we currently do, but also includes then some baseline forecast calculations, integrated climate action module that produces a reduction forecast. It has indicator tracking, and it has an online dashboard that is available for an additional fee. And then over time, basically, one that uses the software to produce a baseline forecast. You input all of your recommended actions that you want to do. That kind of calculates what what the software believes would be your reduced forecast in the future. And you can use those two to kind of compare where we're at, where we expect to be going, and where we really want to get to. So that's kind of the software, an overview of the software that's becoming available. They use a model that is known as the transition element framework. And basically, without getting into the details, basically the software uses kind of software widgets that are pre-programmed so that we can take a kind of a customized action that is kind of specific to our area and then link it to something that's a little bit more general within the software. And then those transition elements are used to do the calculations. The key piece here is that these transition elements are based directly on the IPCC mitigation options from the 6th assessment report. So there's kind of the attempt is to try to directly tie recommended actions that the software is tracking back explicitly with the recommended actions from the IPCC at an international level, kind of. Because a lot of basically kind of just trying to make it very clear and delineated kind of what is going to be the GHG impact. I'm not going to go through the details of this diagram in detail. This is from the Clearview software, but just in general, I'll talk through basically local governments develop and this is moving very roughly from the left-hand side of the diagram to the right-hand side. Basically, local government develop and execute interventions, oftentimes what we refer to as actions. These interventions impact real-world attributes. Changes in attributes cause individual behavior changes. Behavior changes lead to activity shifts. Activity shifts lead to both changes in emissions as well as other related outcomes. And then indicators are tracked annually to confirm that the progress is actually being made. So in short there, it's basically trying to build the logic chain that says in our climate action plans, we list these actions. How does that kind of transcend through in a logical statement? And all of this is kind of coded into the software in a numeric fashion. So I want to take a couple of slides here and just kind of walk through the process. These are my simplified versions here. And in general, our current kind of process, or this is an amalgamation of our current process and what we would be doing using the ClearPath software, basically collecting activity data. So first we need to create an emissions inventory for our baseline. So to do that, we're going to collect activity data, we're going to determine emissions factors, we're going to perform inventory calculations, and we produce our GHG inventory. That's what we're currently doing in Excel, and that the ClearPath software also replicates. Then the software also allows, and it has integrated in, the ClearPath has integrated in, that one can determine growth factors, and then those growth factors based around population, economy, changes in travel are basically used to create what is a future inventory emissions inventory, or a business as usual inventory. Then the piece of ClearPath that is kind of an additional function, in which I think I'm the most excited about, is that it also has additional modules that allow us to track local climate actions. So we would be taking those actions that are in the local climate action plans and that we've cataloged as part of our climate action tracker, and then be replicating that list as part of ClearPath. Each action is then linked to one of these little widgets they call transition elements. For each element, we kind of determine what our targets are. We want to reach this milestone by this date. Those calculations are then create a transition forecast, which shows our reduced future emissions. And then in parallel to that, we're able to basically then track indicators on an annual basis. And their recommendation from ICLEI right now is to not spend as much time doing monolithic large-scale inventories, but do an inventory, get your baseline, and then do an annual summary around indicators. So this all kind of summarizes at the end. We basically are able to compare our baseline forecast with our transition forecast to see whether we've met our carbon neutrality goals, or at least see where we are going with those carbon neutrality goals. I'm going to move briefly through these next slides, really in the interest of time. And this is going to be, I will include this link so that members of this committee can look at this and interact with these slides. These are screenshots here. ICLEI, the ClearPath software, has a built-in online module. And there's an asterisk associated with that, but it has a built-in online module that's available. These are screenshots from the city of Cleveland. This is basically showing kind of their inventory that they've done. And then we're zeroing in here on transportation and showing kind of what's the transportation take. And then here's the list of interventions that they've identified. These are the actions that the city would like to take. Each of those actions can display additional information associated with that. And then each of the actions is then linked to one of these transition elements. Here we can see it's linked to the zero emission light duty vehicles element. We then zoom in on what are those expected reductions from the actions that are taken. Here we're seeing reductions associated with clean transportation, and zooming in again, reductions, the subset of that around personal mobility, the subset of that associated with zero emission light duty vehicles. And so there we see that the kind of trying to come full circle to show how these pieces are connected. And then this is showing the city of Cleveland's transition targets for increasing the amount of zero emission light duty vehicles over time. And you can see at the bottom the reality, and then you can see the steep curve of what they're hoping to achieve. That then all circles back around at the end, where one can see where it's kind of checked plus minus to see whether one is actually meeting the targets that's been set. So, as a real world example to step through really quick, we've been in conversation with the city of Petaluma about how we could take some of the data from their blueprint for climate action and bring it into this software. So basically, this is just an example of how we could take one of their cornerstone actions that's developed as articulated in their current document, having to do with electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and then how that kind of ties in as linking it to a transition element, linking that element to an indicator, linking one transition element to another related transition element and another related indicator. really because, and the logic chain here is that the action is developing a strategy document. That alone does not reduce GHGs, but it enables other things to happen. And so it enables EV charging ports to be installed. It enables, and then what we do is we track the on the ground impacts. So some concluding thoughts, and then I can available to answer any questions. This is kind of summarizing, I think, some of the things I've spoken about already here. Our current inventory is based using Excel, and we have full functionality over those calculations. We are evaluating ClearPath 2.0 as an upgrade option, and we've paid for an annual membership for 1 year to evaluate the software right now. ClearPath would allow for a baseline, a forecast, action tracking, and climate indicators above and beyond what we're currently doing. Our current online dashboard is built using Power BI, and we have kind of complete control over it, but there is a heavy lift to make changes. The ClearPath 2.0 has an integrated dashboard. It is not available as part of their base package. So that's something we're evaluating. What would be that extra cost? We also have the climate action tracker that we use internally behind the scenes. We're evaluating options for how we can add additional functions to that and possibly upgrade that software so that it's not just an internal tool that we're using among a small handful of people here, but it's actually something that we can interact directly with jurisdictional staff on and possibly display back out as part of our website. And then kind of leaning forwards next steps, there we are evaluating potentially updating our climate mobilization strategy in the upcoming 2026 and thinking about how all of these pieces together, connecting the dots, really play together into upgrading that document and what would that be? What implications does that have for our carbon neutrality goals, integration with other local climate plans, and kind of the online pieces. So the next steps that I'm working on personally right now are really importing the GHG data into ClearPath to build our baseline inventory, inputting a handful of the local actions and linking those with transition elements so that we can kind of see in a little bit more detail kind of how the logic flows. And then we're evaluating how to segment our data so that it plays nicely with the software and allows us to do the detailed reports that I think we really want to get to for each being able to provide a snapshot specifically for each jurisdiction on what their emissions are and really make it, the goal would be that we're going to hopefully, we could be the umbrella to hold the pieces, but it's going to be the individual jurisdictional staff that they're developing the climate action plan, and it's kind of trying to bring more tools to them. So in a snapshot, that's where we're at, and that's what I've been working on the last few weeks. And I know we're close to time, but happy to answer any questions.
Shirley and then Stephanie.
Oh, I just go first? Yeah, great, okay. Thank you, BC. Whoa, easy now. So, you know, we got sued a while ago for not being able to track VMT, right? So is this software better now that we won't be looking at litigation again? Is that a bad question?
I believe I understand so my understanding, and I was not on staff at that time, my understanding you're probably referring to the lawsuit related to Climate Action 2020. My understanding is those were deficiencies having to do with a certified EIR that was going to be used in a legal fashion. Therefore, it rose to the level of lawsuit. Everything that we're doing here, all of this, these are internal working documents. Nothing is kind of in a legal fashion. So I think it's taking from those lessons, but it's kind of a little bit different of an issue. Yeah. Sure.
Right, Andy.
Thanks for the presentation, BC. So this seems like a forecasting software. Yeah. I wonder if anybody is tracking like best practices of implementation. I know there's a Cal Poly professor that tracks like all the climate action plans throughout the state, and it would be super useful if somebody was going behind and I don't know if anybody's doing this, if you know, to say, because all these climate action plans look relatively similar, to address emissions from X, you do this is the best practice. To do this, here's the best practice, so that we have like a blueprint of like, what are the best practices? This is what everybody could do to be most effective, and create a path in that way.
I believe that's a great suggestion. Yes. And I personally don't know if that level of analysis has been done yet, but I do think that's where I'd like to head. Yes.
I think ICLEI could do that, or maybe a local university, or the JC.
Stephanie and then Pete.
Thanks. I just have a clarifying question, BC. So for transportation tracking, will this include airports or only road car traffic?
So I believe that currently we only track on-road transportation and off-road kind of ATV use, things like that, and airports not included. I think that this discussion and or decision around airport emissions is kind of a separate policy discussion. The software, is my understanding, can include it if we want to include it.
Who is having that discussion now?
So that specific topic has kind of been discussed in detail before, and we could provide some background information on some of the discussions. There are some complicated ways to try to track those numbers. There are some less complicated ways to track those numbers. The decision has kind of been made, at least for the last inventory, to continue to exclude the airport, the aviation emissions. That I don't want to say I think it's an open discussion to have again, but it is something that could be reconsidered by our board at any time thinking about moving forward. So
thank you.
Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, BC. So this is not at all a criticism. It's just an observation. It's just something that's in my head when I'm watching all this. With an understanding that if we were to, in fact, get from where we are now to zero net emissions by some standard by 2030, we would be on a steep downhill path. And if we are reducing emissions, it's only very, very slowly. We're not anywhere close to meeting our 2030 goal. And that's not within your power or my power, really. But I just wonder if we were to have any hope of getting close to our 2030 target, it would require that these kind of topics that we're engaged in be discussed on a much wider level. And it's a little frustrating to me that it's only just a small handful of us who are even have any awareness that we have these broad goals. That's all.
I will just comment our 2030 goal, I think when it was adopted knowing it was an aspirational goal.
Right.
As we're getting closer to 2030, I think that is leading into the discussion around the updating our climate mobilization strategy and whether or not that climate neutrality goal should be reevaluated, and or whether there's a place to align with state standards of a 2045 goal, or whether we within the county wanted to continue to kind of make much more of a statement by saying, no, we're going to do it faster than that. And I think that's a very in-depth topic that I think will be central to updating the climate mobilization strategy over the course of the next year.
More to talk about, but not now.
Yes.
Well, okay. I see Nick has his hand raised. Thank you.
Hi, DC. Thank you for that. That was cool to hear about. In the existing inventories and in SCTCA's work and in the ClearPath software, are carbon emissions calculated on a life cycle basis, or is this emissions only within the physical boundaries Sonoma County? Meaning, like, do we in our emissions inventories, do we include the carbon emissions of consuming beef that was produced outside of the county, or using cement that was used outside of the county, things like, or that was made outside of the county but then bought here?
So I don't want to get too technical and misspeak, but I believe what you're describing is what's more known as a consumption-based inventory. And what we do is instead is what's known as an activity-based inventory. And it's much more focused exclusively on how much fuel was burned, how much electricity was used, things like that. And things that emissions that are outside of the area, even if the products have been imported in, are currently not included. My general rule of thumb I've heard is that it's approximately a 2-to-1, that if you take your existing inventory and double it, that's a very good approximation of what your consumption inventory may be.
That is not what I've heard.
So I would be very interested in following up with you and talking some more about that. So
great, thank you.
Go ahead, Zeno.
Yeah, so I have a background in like risk, uncertainty, probability theories. I had 2 questions about this. Is there like a track record of this forecasting that you had access to? Has it proven itself to be interesting, reliable? And then the second one, is the forecasting probabilistic? So are they like definite forecasts, or is there like a spread, or can we see some forecasts that are more certain than others?
I believe the baseline forecast is based around simple calculations around growth factors, increases in population, changes in population, changes in economic activity, changes in transportation, vehicle miles traveled, and fuel choices. So I believe the forecast for doing the baseline inventory is much more of a linear forecast. And on the forecast having to do with future emissions that would be linked to the transition elements, that I think is a little bit more black box behind the scenes. A lot of those those calculations are available. They're making them available open source as part of a GitHub project where one can kind of look at what the calculations are behind the scenes. But as far as kind of truth checking those or the scientific validity of them, that's something that I have not kind of looked into, other than kind of accepting the word of ICLEI that this is viable software that will give us more information. So
very well. Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my desire to see what you had talked about potentially as having this publicly displayed, the information on the website. To Pete's point, I think the work that we're talking about doing and what we want to target requires people to be informed and involved. And I think having very easy to understand dashboards that people can look at a glance and understand kind of the broad strokes of what people are attempting to do in order to meet those targets would be really important. I also, all of this really hinges on the transition element framework, as I understand. I know we were rushed a bit, but I would be really curious to learn more about where that comes from, because obviously all of the predictions come from that understanding that is the best way to move to be effective, which I'm not questioning, but would love to find out more about.
Great. I'll pile on by just saying, BC, wonderful to see the progress. I think the transition indicators and granularity of that is something we've been asking for around this table for years. It sounds like it's still, there's interest in it, and we look forward to that being elevated in this tool. Yes, consumption-based inventories, airports, those kinds of things which are currently external to our inventory methodology in the county remain concerns. But this will give us an idea, I think, as we start to forecast forward. To the question about inputs and, a big question having come up in some of our general plan discussions is what is happening to the population in Sonoma County? Do we continue to assume endless growth? Or do we assume maybe in the most recent period, we actually are experiencing loss of population in the county, largely as a result of climate-related hazards? So we may very well hit our 2030 goal at the rate we are going. It may not be as aspirational to hit those goals as we think. And that should be scary. But it is the reality that we're living with. So these tools can perhaps help us make better decisions, and that's why we're putting the time into them.
I just wanted to add one last comment on kind of the software specifically. And it's embedded in here, but so I'm viewing the work that I'm currently doing right now on ClearPath as an evaluation. And it is the path that I would like to go down and I'm kind of pointing us towards. But I just want to admit, there is other software out there that does some of these same functions. I'm continuing to kind of investigate those as well while I'm kind of going down this path. But I guess it was an open invitation to others on this committee or anybody else that's online, if there are other options or software that one thinks are viable or could be used as a model, or please let me know, because we are evaluating ClearPath. We're kind of walking down this path, but we have not made a long-term commitment, I guess is what I actually wanted, is the best way to frame it.
And I think Andy's comment about the state level coordination and whether that tool that's being used by San Luis Obispo under the Air Resources Board whether that might supersede this, perhaps potentially through legislation. Could be good to have that conversation before we go too far down that path. And Zeno, one more. We're pretty far over, but we've good conversations.
So this software is kind of classical, traditional software that follows the pre-AI model, large language models and pattern recognition. Kind of, I'm pushing that aside, and I'd like you to kind of look into that a bit so that we're not in this linear model where we take the input and calculate the output, and everybody understand how it got about. Thanks.
Very well. We'll close this item out, and we lost Tanya because of the going over time. So do we have any other update on SCTA climate change activities? Anybody prepared to do that? Go ahead, BC.
So I can give, switching to the next item, I can give 3 brief updates. The first two are actually kind of responses or additional information from things that are mentioned earlier in this meeting. First, one of our public comments from Steve Pierce was regarding the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, their appliance rules having to do with zero emissions. Myself personally, currently been seated as a member of the implementation working group that is going to provide feedback to the Air Board on their second set of rules that has to do with furnace replacements. So that we've had one meeting so far. That's an advisory body that provides input back to the Air Board. So it's just that's an ongoing engagement that's just started, and I believe we're going to have a number of meetings over the next few months, over the next year, focused on on furnaces, and then there are 2 subcommittees, one on small residential and one on large residential and on commercial, and I'm going to be participating as part of the subcommittee on small residential. So I just wanted to give that as an update. The second update I wanted to give was providing just a little bit more information on the comment earlier about reach codes, and not wanting to get into a discussion or something, but wanted to acknowledge that the state legislation that was passed earlier this year has made it much more difficult to pass reach codes, but there are a handful of jurisdictions across the state that are moving forward given the parameters of the bill I don't have the current count, but I believe it's between 15 and 20 jurisdictions statewide that are moving forward with some sort of reach code. And most of those were ones that had reach codes on the book and are just kind of continuing to move forward. The one local jurisdiction that I'm aware of that I wanted to call out or give kind of kudos to is, my understanding is the city of Santa Rosa is going to move forward with a kind of an electric preferred reach code, and that will go to city council sometime in December, I believe. That was discussed at their last climate action subcommittee meeting last week. My final update I wanted to give was some updates on the Bayren programs, of which we here at SCTCA help staff. First, there is Tom, I believe you mentioned this, there's a Codes and Standards Forum coming up on November 19th, and it's talking about focusing on how the policy shifts around reach codes impact our work that we do, how jurisdictions are adapting their reach codes or adapting their approaches. And so this quarterly forum, I believe this is an online forum, and we will make sure that the registration link is sent out to committee members. Second, wanted to highlight a second event that's coming up. There's a accredited green appraiser training, which is being presented by Bayren, Stop Waste, and Franklin Energy. And it is a two-day course, November 19th and 20th. And it is also, so that is really focused on realtors, but trying to kind of bridge this gap between kind of green improvements and realtors and the real estate kind of market. So we will also make sure those invitations go out. That event is the 19th and 20th in San Rafael. And then the last one I wanted to highlight was the Bayren, the Ease Plus Home Program. This is a program that is really focused for for single-family residential in the county. There's been 143 home site visits scheduled, 105 visits, and 72 projects have moved forward to sign participation agreements. So by the end of the year, our goal is to serve 100 homes throughout Sonoma County. And that program really is focusing right now on some of the most common types of measures are focused on attic insulation, whole home weather stripping, whole home air sealing, hot water pipe insulation, and deeply buried duct work and replacement. So a lot of the work in this program right now is about that preliminary work about making your building tighter and being more efficient prior to actually installing any of the actual kind of appliance upgrades. So those were the updates that I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add on here, we had a little back and forth in setting the agenda today about we added the phrase local land use change topics to this update. And I just wanted to note that it's occurred to me, especially as we're going through the general plan update process in many places, that the wine industry has removed in Sonoma County, I think something like 5% of the grapes. And we have to start thinking about the impact of the land use change that could potentially be. We know that grapes are a pretty low intensity greenhouse gas agricultural product. What are those land uses going to be replaced with? I don't know that conversation's being had yet. And I just wanted to bring it to this table as something for people to be thinking about. You know, livestock are pretty high intensity. Cannabis is higher intensity in terms of its water use, and tourism, certainly with vehicle miles traveled, is also intensive. So if we want to be an agricultural community, we have to figure this out. And that's something that we're going to have some hard conversations about, I believe. So without further ado, any announcements anyone would like to make before we convene, before we adjourn?
Very much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your attendance. And again, I apologize for running late. We're going to have to work on getting some time on this agenda so we don't let that happen again. Thank you.